Hi everyone, my name is Clarissa and I blog over at GirlBudgetLife.com. I help busy college students get better grades without the stress, overwhelm, and lack of social life. And today I have a special guest. I have Amanda from Get a Life at Sea, where she helps people get paid to travel. And funny story is that I actually met Amanda on Periscope when she was talking about all the different opportunities that there are for getting paid to be on a cruise ship. And she actually got 4 degrees within 6 years while she was traveling the world. And I thought that it would be really fun to have her on my YouTube channel so that she can share how other college students can get paid to travel and still, earn their degree. So thank you so much for joining me today, Amanda.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And yeah, I really love talking to college students about the opportunities that they can actually travel the world and get paid to do it. So yeah.
Sweet.
Thank you. So I guess just to intro myself, my name's Amanda and I'm a cruise employment specialist. I worked on board cruise ships for 10 years in total, and then afterwards I did another 5 years in shoreside cruise line recruitment and employment services. So during my 10 years at sea, about 5 of those years accumulatively, I was actually working on board, doing my university degrees, and working seasonally on board with a number of cruise lines. So that sort of really led me to being able to get those degrees, graduate, and then return more full-time to the cruising industry. And that's when I moved into the role of onboard crew trainer and onboard HR manager for the last 5 years that I spent on board cruise ships. And so now that I'm off cruise ships, just for a short time, I do have a family now, which is why I'm sort of leading more of a land life now. My goal is to really help people who are interested in getting a life at sea, even if it's for a short time, and really navigating the waters of the cruise line application and interview process, because it can be a bit confusing. So that's sort of what my business, GetALifeAtSea.com, is focused on.
Nice. And how did you end up on a cruise ship to begin with?
I definitely was lucky in that realm of things, because my mom actually is the official Canadian hiring partner for Princess Cruises. She operates a company called Page Marine Cruise, and she's actually been in marine recruitment for over 35 years. And she actually worked on board ships as well. I did note it that I've been on cruise ships for 10 years, but the first 3 years of my life I actually spent on a cargo ship, because my dad was a captain and she was his partner. So that's how she got started in the marine world. And then when they came off ships, they went into marine recruitment. So she has been now hiring for cruise lines for over 15 years of that 35 years. So I guess I kind of had a little bit of an unfair in the realm of cruising. But actually, interestingly, I didn't have an easy time getting on board, because I didn't get to interview with her. I actually had to interview with the head of HR with Princess Cruises, because she wanted to make sure that there was sort of no conflict of interest. But I did have an unfair advantage because I knew it was a possibility from the moment I was born, basically, and I always had that draw to go back. So as soon as I was able to, as soon as that opportunity presented itself, that getting on board seasonally during my university off time, so summer, spring break, Christmas, I was able to apply for a youth staff position with Princess, and that's pretty much what I did for the first 5 years.
That is freaking amazing.
Cumulatively, time at sea, really I've been at sea for 13 years.
Yeah.
I don't really count, baby to 3 years old.
You should totally count it, because that's a pretty cool story. Not a lot of people can say, I spent the first 3 years of my life on a cargo ship.
I definitely learned to walk. That's where I learned to walk. So yeah, I honestly was born with the sea legs.
Yeah. So I heard you mention just briefly about youth staff positions. So are those the positions that are available to college students?
Yes, those are the positions that work best for the college student's schedule, because most positions on board cruise ships require that a person commit to a 6-month period or longer, so 6 months on, 2 months off. But youth activity staff personnel with some cruise lines are able to go on for as short as a week. They do have seasonal contracts from anywhere from 1 week to 12 weeks. So not every cruise line offers this. There are, very specific lines that do offer seasonal employment opportunities, but that's the best way as a college student to still be able to continue your studies and then travel on all of your off times. Because the great thing about youth activity staff is the numbers of kids go up during seasonally busy times, which is the same times for college students when you're off. So summer break, spring break, Christmas, American Thanksgiving. So it actually works out perfectly with the times off that a college student has off anyway.
Nice. And so what does that job consist of, the youth staff?
So basically, you're facilitating activities for cruisers aged anywhere from 2 to 17 on board. Everything is pre-programmed for you. You do have a youth activities manager on board that sort of just gives you the schedule and has you implement those activities for the cruisers on board. So it's kind of like a day camp setting. You're doing things like sports activities, arts and crafts, maybe hosting a kids' disco. Those are the type of really fun activities that you get to do.
Nice. And so, how long is that job contracted for usually?
Usually, in most cases, they want you to start for 2 to 4 weeks to start with, just to give you a good idea and a good taste of what it's actually like. They will take people on for a week, but I always tell people, if you have the opportunity to go on for longer than a week, your first contract, it is a good idea, because the first week is pretty busy. You're learning a new job. You also have a lot of on-the-job training that's happening and safety training as well. So you don't really get a real feel for the job itself. So I always recommend try it for 2 to 4 weeks or longer if you're available, and then just keep going back. And that's the great thing with these cruise lines. Once you're hired as a seasonal employee, you then just email them when you're available, and they will just plug you in over and over and over again whenever it works best for you.
That's really good, because then you don't have, technically you wouldn't have to worry about finding a job during those off seasons where everyone's scrambling.
You don't have to go through that, oh my gosh, it's April, I have to start applying. You would simply just email your regular administrator at the cruise line and say, hey, I'm available again for the whole summer, and then they'll book you in.
So just because I'm very analytical and I need to know the step by step, so could you walk us through kind of from the moment you find this cruise ship job to when you get hired? What's the process for that? What are the requirements, and are they looking for a specific type of person? Kind of explain that.
Okay, so let's talk about requirements first and the type of person they're looking for first. Most cruise lines that are looking for seasonal youth staff, youth activity staff, or youth security, which is another seasonal role as well that's youth related, but very, very few cruise lines have that role. I'll talk more about that later. Generally speaking, for youth staff, they're looking for people that have 1 to 2 years or more of work with youth or teens in a large scale setting. So day camps or summer camps or YMCA work. Those are the types of people that they're looking for and the type of experience that they're looking for. They love having college student aged people, so anyone from 21 and up. But we do, it's funny, in the youth activity staff, we have a lot of that age range, but we also have a lot of retired teachers that come on during this time as well, because it's a great opportunity for them to continue working with kids and get to travel the world as well. So it is quite a wide age range as well, but those are the requirements that they are hopefully looking for, is somebody who is very flexible, wants to travel, loves working with kids, and does have that base experience.
Okay. So what are some of the qualities that you would want to put down on your resume then, if you were to, say, go for one of these jobs? What kind of things do they specifically pop out when you get called back for an interview?
You want to put in your main objective that you are looking for, first of all, seasonal employment, so seasonal youth staff or youth activities employment. You want to have, at the very top of your resume, relevant work experience. So usually, because I do resume work with quite a few people through my company, a lot of people have a lot of varied experience, but for cruise lines, you really want to have your relevant experience at the very top. So I always recommend 2 sections, relevant work experience at the top, and then you list all of your youth-related experience there, and then additional work experience underneath that. Cruise lines are also looking for both paid and volunteer work experience that you've had. So if you've worked with Boys and Girls Club or YMCA, or you've done youth group work or whatever and it wasn't paid, make sure you still put that on there, because they're looking for a breadth of experience. So have it all on there and have the most relevant stuff at the top with a very clear objective. Each cruise line tends to refer to youth activity staff under a slightly different term. So you want to make sure that you do the research first so that you're, for each cruise line that you're applying for, you know the exact correct terminology to use when you're applying for that role. For example, some cruise lines say youth animator versus youth activity staff. So you want to make sure that you're very clear on that objective.
Okay. And so once you get your resume in and they're like, all right, great, you're in, like, we want to have you in for an interview. What are some of the type of questions that you might expect, and like how could a college student prepare for them?
Okay. The type of questions that you can expect is they're going to be asking you for whether or not what your flexibility is going to look like with regards to scheduling. So when are you hoping to go out? How long are you hoping to go out for? How soon can you leave? How much notice do you actually need for your first contract? Because your first contract, often you get very, very short notice. Every contract thereafter, you're emailing them and telling them when you're available, but your first contract can be very, very short notice, because what cruise lines tend to do is they offer all of their old hire youth staff first choice. And then with whatever positions are left, they then give, say, the official hiring partner those remaining positions to fill. So sometimes you only get a week or two notice.
Wow.
Or even shorter your first contract. So if you're someone that can leave in short notice, that's definitely going to bump you up the list when it comes to being considered first. The type of questions they may ask are things like, what type of activities have you implemented before? Are you a sports person or an arts and crafts person? What type of filler activity would you maybe implement for this age group? So start to think about what you've done before, some examples that you can give of excellent activities facilitated for youth, and also definitely do research on that particular cruise line. Each cruise line will have different ages that they'll provide for. They'll have different names for their centers. They'll have different activities that are available. So you really, again, want to do the research on each individual line to prepare yourself for what that line offers their youth, so you can really cater your experience when you're talking about it to that particular line.
Okay. And so earlier, I think you mentioned that there are very limited cruise lines that have the youth staff position. So how would a college student even find out about this? Or like what are some of the websites that they might go to? Would they be able to find these youth staff positions on something like Indeed.com?
There's so few new hire positions that come available, and so they're not really advertised a lot of the time, because cruise lines in general, large-scale cruise lines, are getting thousands of resumes a day for all of their positions. Official hiring partners, which are in most large countries have an official hiring partner in each major city. They're getting 500 to 1,000 as well resumes per day. So they're getting enough resumes that they tend not to have to advertise. If they do, it's going to be on their employment pages. So, for example, P&O Australia, which is a much smaller cruise line, they only have 4 ships right now, soon to be 5. They recently posted looking for youth staff, but on their employment page. So it is a good idea to keep an eye on their employment pages, each cruise line's employment page. It is a good idea to consistently send your resume to the official hiring partners for your country. So, for example, if you're in the U.S., each cruise line will have an official hiring contact for that country, for the U.S., and even potentially your city. So it's a good idea every sort of 3 or 4 months, just keep sending your resume to that official hiring partner as well. And actually, here's a tip as well for Americans that a lot of Americans don't know about, is I always say apply to the Canadian offices as well. It sounds odd, but American offices get way more resume applications than the Canadian offices.
Interesting.
The Canadian offices, in some cases, can hire Americans, because the Canadian and American offices for the cruise lines are very closely connected, so that it's okay. So sometimes you actually might have a better chance of getting hired by an official Canadian partner than you would in the U.S. if you're in the U.S.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. Yeah. So, okay, so it seems like it's hard to get a job on these cruise ships. where would you kind of step in to help people, you know, get a little in on these type of jobs? Because it seems like you know the industry pretty well. I mean, you've been on the ships for 10 years and now you're helping people get on the ship. So what are some of the type of services that you can offer to college students to help them have a better chance of getting these, you know, youth staff position jobs?
The services that I offer, so I have one main product right now and 3 services. So my main product is called How the Heck to Get a Job on a Cruise Ship. And that's a guide. It's over 50 pages of information. I actually just updated it as well. But in that guide, the most important thing that I provide is all the major cruise lines' contact details, as well as their employment links and step-by-step instructions for that particular line in order to apply, as well as 14 concessions as well. So if someone wants to bypass like the weeks and weeks of tedious research, going to each individual line and trying to find this information, and sometimes the info is not easy to find. Sometimes these cruise lines' employment pages, for whatever reason, are actually pretty difficult to locate. If somebody doesn't want to do all that, then they can just, you know, get the guide. It's like a one-stop shop. Here's all the information. The other services I provide are a resume consult. So I will review someone's resume and give them sort of the top positions that I would recommend for them to apply to, as well as the recommended cruise lines as well, based on their position that they're wanting. And also resume consultation. So I totally review the resume and give recommendations as to positions and changes to the resume. I do a resume revamps as well, so totally redoing your resume to make it more enticing to the cruise lines, because not only did I work on board in HR on board the ships, but I also was part of an official hiring partner agency for quite a few years. So I know what the cruise lines and those hiring partners are looking for. So I completely redo resumes as well. And I also offer one-on-one cruise employment coaching via Skype or phone, where people can ask me any and all questions that they want when it comes to where they should be starting and what positions would be best suited to them. So those are the kind of services that I offer, kind of just an insider's helping hand when it comes to navigating all of this. Because one of the things that I know, just talking to so many people that have, found me or even on board, when they finally have gotten on board, a lot of people have said, I Googled cruise ship jobs and it was just too overwhelming. There was just too much information. And a lot of it is too much information, and a lot of it too, there are a lot of scam agencies out there that will ask for money to get you a job. And what people need to remember is that any legitimate agent or official hiring partner, they get paid by the cruise line. Nobody should be asking you for any money before you've actually gotten a position on a line. The only things that you're ever going to need to pay for when it comes to working on board a cruise ship, one is your passport, if you don't already have one. That'll be at your own expense. The other is a criminal records check. Most cruise lines require this, and the other is a medical. But the criminal record check and medical are not things that you need to pay for until you've been accepted and approved by the cruise line. Okay. The only other slight possibility would be, in some cases, some cruise lines will make you pay your own flights on your first contract, and then every time thereafter, they will cover your flights. Other cruise lines, like all the cruise lines I've ever worked with, have paid my way from day one. Oh, so that's nice. That's other kind of information I can provide people as well, like during the coaching call, like, okay, well, you've applied to this line and you've applied to this line. That's great. They've called you back. This line provides all of this, and this line, doesn't cover this. So those are the other things that I can provide as well. But yeah, just the Google search, there's just so much information and so much bad information out there. So that's why I started GirlLifeAC.com, just to help people, get the right information, because those 10 years at sea were some, like, the best years of my life. I got to see almost every continent in the world. It's easier to tell you where I haven't been than where I have been. I mean, the only places I haven't been as of yet is India and Antarctica. Wow. Everywhere else I've been to. Wow. And cruising has brought me that. So I really want to help people have that same experience and get paid to see all of those amazing places. Right.
And so I just want to bring you back, because as soon as you said, like, oh, they pay for your travel, I started thinking, like, oh, what other kind of benefits do people that work on cruise ship do they get? So what other things you have access to besides being able to see, like, another country, which is pretty cool as in itself. So
The other benefits that you have access to are things like free crew tours. So there's organizations on board each cruise line called Crew Welfare. So they organize different social events and different tours for crews. So those are always usually free. You also have access to passenger tours for free as well. Passenger tours that cost hundreds of dollars. You have access to taking those for free by being what's called a crew escort. So every cruise line likes to have a crew escort on each tour that they run. Obviously, there'll be a tour guide, but a crew escort is there just in case something happens, a passenger needs to return to the ship or needs extra assistance. You're there to sort of help out. You're there enjoying the tour, but if required, you're kind of there to help out. So I've done some amazing tours, all for free. Paragliding, snorkeling, jet skiing, going to all the museums and in Italy and just amazing tours. I know people are spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on as passengers.
Yeah.
Free. And then the other benefits, things like, the ability to save most of what you're actually earning. You have everything provided for you on board. Your room is provided to you. All your food is provided to you. Drinks, like if you want to have a drink with a friend in the crew bar, you're looking at 75 cents to $1.50. The same drink a passenger is paying $15 for, you're paying $1 for.
Wow.
So your going out costs, are very low. So for me, especially when I first started out, still being in university, it was a wonderful way to not only see the world and get paid, but actually save what I was earning to pay for the next year of school.
Pretty freaking cool. And do you get enough downtime during your shift in order to be able to enjoy those kind of things? And also going back to like the process, how long is usually the training and how extensive is it?
Right. Okay, so we'll talk, I guess, first about downtime. So with youth staff and youth security, so I guess I'll talk about both roles now, just to have a good idea. So youth activity staff, you're facilitating the activities for youth on board. Youth security, which at this point is only with P&O Australia and sometimes Princess, those are people who patrol the ship for the youth and teens that are not participating in the activities, because we can have upwards of like 1,000 kids on board, so physically they wouldn't even fit all in the centers if they all showed up at once. So we do have kids, I wouldn't say causing trouble outside of the center, but you're just sort of patrolling, letting them know where they can be, making sure that they're acting appropriately. So that's what youth security does. So with regards to typical work hours for both positions, I always say you have to think about it in terms of sea days and port days. So with most cruise lines, you're gonna be working 7 to 10 day cruises. Usually you're on board for however long, 2 to 4 weeks, but the passengers are doing 7 to 10 day cruises usually. And during that 7 or 10 days, you're gonna have 3 or 4 port days and 3 or 4 sea days. Generally speaking, sea days are long days for everyone. The ship is at sea all day, the kids are all coming to the center. So for youth activity staff, it's usually 3 3-hour split shifts, 3 3-hour 4-hour split shifts. So you might on a sea day be doing like a 9 to 12, and then having a couple of hours off, and then doing a 2 to 5, and then a 7 to 10. That's kind of typically a sea day schedule for youth staff. And then port days, some cruise lines have their kids centers open in port days, some cruise lines don't, which is another thing to find out when you are applying is, are those kids centers open during port days? Because if they're not open, then you may have more port time than a cruise line that has them open. But even if a cruise line has their kids centers open on a port day, they don't need all of the staff in. A lot of parents take their kids off the ship to go do tours and things like that. So the kids centers are not full even if they're open. So let's say you have a team of 15 or 20 youth staff. We only will need 3 to 6 in the centers on those port days, which means the other youth staff are off doing their own tours or enjoying the port. And so you'll do that on a rotational basis, so everyone sort of has a shared amount of time to go and see the port. So during a typical 7-day cruise, I say always expect to work 9 to 11 hours on a sea day, and then on port days maybe you'd be scheduled for an 8 to 10 hour shift if you were scheduled in the kids centers during a port day. But then generally speaking, you're going to get a day or a half day at least as well, 1 or 2 of those during the week as well in port. And if you do have the whole day off in port, like if you're not scheduled to be in the kids centers during that day and you've had the whole day, you will be working that night. Definitely ships at sail. So that's why I always tell people it is a 7-day-a-week position, but some days you're going to work less than others.
Okay.
And then youth security, for the few companies that have that role, it's primarily a nighttime role. It's 11 hours every day minimum, but you're not starting till 5 or 7 p.m. and then you're working until usually about 2 or 3 a.m. In most cases.
Typical college hours.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's great. So the good news about that is you get great port time, but you also need to be a bit of a night owl as well. But when I say working for 11 hours, youth security traditionally doesn't get called to respond to noise complaints and things like that until later in the evening. So from 5 or 7 p.m. to like 10 or 11 p.m., you're roaming the ship with your partner, having coffee, chatting with guests. Honestly, most crew, because I did youth security as well for a number of years, as well as youth staff, most crew are kind of annoyed by you because they're like, you don't do anything. But the thing is they don't see, because you're working when a lot of people are sleeping.
Yeah.
You're actually doing work, between sort of midnight and 3 is when you're responding to noise complaints and things like that. So that's when you're actually going and doing your job. But other than that, you're sort of just a social point of contact for the passengers and roaming the ship and having your coffee. So,
yeah. So all you social butterflies, this might be a good job for you.
Butterflies that are night owls that want to see a lot of ports, which is because, if you don't need a ton of sleep, you go to bed at 3, you wake up at 9, and then you're off in port the whole day. It's great. And that's one of the reasons that I loved it as well.
Cool. So if I were to be interested in one of these positions, when would I need to start looking for them?
Usually the process to get hired can take anywhere from 30 to 90 days. But as a new hire, if you apply and say, I'm available immediately, you could be hired within, a week or 2. The best time to apply as a youth staff or youth security staff is, generally speaking, about 2 or 3 months before a seasonally busy time.
Okay.
So, if it's in the fall, say, you're looking at September, October, that is a great time to apply because cruise lines are going to be starting to hire for Christmas, for the Christmas season. And so it's a fantastic time to get on as a new hire because a lot of old hire seasonal youth staff and youth security tend to not go on too many Christmas cruises. They want to stay home with family or whatever. So it is a harder time for cruise lines to find seasonal youth staff because you are away for Christmas. But I can tell you, having done Christmas on board a number of times myself, it's super, super fun. I mean, although you're working, there's lots of great things to do during the Christmas season. And, all the crew are in the same place. So it's like you have another family on board. So fall is a great time, as well as American Thanksgiving, because you have that coming in November. So again, September, October is great for that. And then spring break, just a couple months before spring break. So January is a good time to apply. And then April, May, June is also good because cruise lines are looking to hire for the June, July, August period.
So something that you said triggered a thought process that I had. I had a lot of friends that were international, and so during the holiday season, they had nowhere to go. So they were kind of just on campus by themselves. Do cruise ships hire people that are here on like a student visa or something like that? Do you know anything?
They do. Even in the Canadian office, we did hire internationals as well that happened to be in Canada but didn't have Canadian citizenship. The only thing that makes it slightly more difficult in that regards, not impossible, but internationals do need to get what's called a C1D visa in order to work on board a cruise ship. Americans and Canadians do not need that visa. Yay! So that does make it a bit easier. But that's the only thing. It's not an expensive visa, but it can take a few weeks to a month or so to get that organized with the American consulate. So it can hold up the process a tiny bit, but it's not impossible. So if you were an international in the U.S. or Canada, I would say follow the same recommendations that I've given for Americans. Apply to the main cruise line office. Apply to the official hiring partner in the U.S. and in Canada, and go about it in that way.
I'm glad I asked that question then, because I was just thinking, I'm like, I had a lot of friends who probably would have done this because they were by themselves, like during, the Thanksgiving and Christmas when everyone else went back home with their families. So Yeah, Amanda, this was an incredible interview. I'm so glad that I had you on because as I was telling you before we got on here, like I never knew that this type of thing existed, and I wish that I would have known because then I could have been traveling since the age of 21.
Yeah, it's fantastic too. And you know, once you get your foot in the door with one cruise line, it opens the door to all of the other cruise lines as well because, you know, once you have that cruise ship experience, all the other cruise lines usually will take you on because they do accept people with the basic experience, but they want people with cruise ship experience as well.
Makes
and
sense.
On top of that, when you get back ashore, it opens the doors to a whole nother realm of opportunities as well for things like large-scale resorts, Club Med,
Oh,
like
wow.
that kind of thing. You know, they all have the same kind of programs as well, and they do also hire seasonally too. So it opens the doors to all sorts of opportunities for travel and different types of opportunities.
Yeah, so this actually might be good for people that are thinking of going into the hospitality industry.
Yes,
Yeah.
hospitality or, you know, or teaching. Like if you're planning on working with kids, this is a great opportunity to still do it and gain your experience more with youth as well. So yeah, teaching or hospitality, tourism, really anything. Because another thing people need to remember is you might get on board like I did as a youth staff and then progress. You might say, hey, this is awesome, and look at other positions, and you may realize that there's other positions on board you never knew about and apply for those. So, you know, I never knew that an onboard crew trainer was a possibility. But when I finished my degree in teaching, I realized, hey, I can go back on board and still teach and teach English and teach customer service and work with the crew in a different way. So it really opened my eyes to a whole nother career choice for me other than teaching ashore.
Nice. And where can we find out more about how to get paid to travel and talk to you a little bit more about how you can get paid to travel as a college student, the different youth staff positions? Where are you located on social media?
So everybody can go to my website, which is just getalifeatsea.com. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm trying to think about Periscope for sure. Like if people want to chat with me live, that's a great way to find me.
Yeah.
All of my platforms are just Get a Life at Sea. And YouTube also is great as well for people to check out because I have a lot of instructional videos there as well and information videos regarding cruise ship employment specifically. So that's another thing to check out. But definitely, yeah, Periscope is great because you get to chat with me live.
Yep,
Sure.
that's where I met you. So I will make sure to put a link to all of your social media and your blog in the description box, and it'll also be on my blog for anyone who is interested in that. And Amanda, just wanted to thank you again for jumping on with me. It was a really fun interview. Thank you so much.